Welcome, Cherie. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on this podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's really nice to have this time with you.
Well, I was sharing before I hit record that I've known of you through common friends for many years. And for many years, I've been wanting to connect with you. And so now it's just the universe was like, oh, okay, here's the opportunities when you made that recent post on social.
I'm glad that you reached out.
Well, in January, I'm talking about mindset and leadership. And I really feel like you have so much value in this space. You've worked with leaders across diverse industries in wellness, hospitality, customer experience. So, to get started, maybe you can share your perspective on what mindset shifts are essential for leaders who want to create meaningful impact.
Hmm. The first thing that comes up for me is understanding why you are doing what you do. Because whether you are running a business that's connected to a bigger corporation or you're a solopreneur, there needs to be a foundation of your purpose, why you are doing what you are doing. Because for me, that directly correlates to mindset. That if I have a clear vision of why I'm here, not only just doing the work that I'm doing, but bigger picture, just in life in general, why I'm here, that I struggle less when it comes to mindset hits because I could go back to that and have a really clear focus of action steps that I need to make, knowing that I'm working towards having a really big impact. And I'll share a specific example. So, my why, which I've been crafting and shifting language over the last few years, sounds like, um, I want to show up so that others know they matter, feel seen, heard, and supported so that they can produce meaningful action in their lives. I feel like in my early career, I came across so many people who just didn't feel seen in the workspace. And I knew that if I was present and I was slow and a generous listener and really wanted to know deeper and deeper layers of who this person was, that they would be able to find inner and outer growth and do their best work. So that's what I do as a leadership coach. And for mindset for me, when I work with other leaders, again, just as a little repeat, I always go back to understand why you're doing what you're doing because it gives so much perspective. When you're making the hardest decisions in the most challenging times in your career, if you could have that as your mirror, then I think that it does a lot for a mindset shift.
And Cherie, could you share? Because each of us have this journey, the catalyst, where it started. Some of us were just naturally born into a space where we evolve over the course of our life, and others there's a catalyst, there's a pivot. I'm curious, what was your spark for your passion in helping others?
Yeah. I mean, I think I could take it way back. I remember just being young and not like clearly knowing that I didn't understand my direction, that I really wanted to make a big impact in other people's lives, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't feel like I had a lot of good resources or mentors to ask questions. And I was just asking them for myself and kind of stumbling along and finding my path. I was able to find really clear mentorship in my early 20s where people put a lot of trust into me. And that made a huge impact on the work that I do now. So, to answer your question, like, how did I get here? I really didn't want other people to struggle or feel alone or as deeply confused as I felt, especially in my teens, early 20s. Like, knowing like something inside me said, like, you have this one beautiful life opportunity, do something with it, but nobody to really engage with, to ask, big questions. So I wanted to be that spark for other people, to hold space and to ask question and get deeper and deeper and fully be present with them so that they knew that somebody else cared, somebody else was listening to them, and somebody else is going to be in their corner as an accountability partner to do their hardest and their best work.
Several questions come to mind because everything
Mm.
you just articulated truly makes me feel joyful on the inside, knowing that there are souls who feel
Mm.
this innate mission for this type. I don't want to call it work because it doesn't feel like work. That the connotation is different with the work often.
Yeah.
But a few things that you said, I wanted to go deeper in. One is
Yes.
that there was a point you mentioned, or maybe several points, where people put trust in you.
Yes.
And I'd like to explore that as well because
Yeah.
for myself, I can say that those moments have been very far and few between, but when they occur, they set a catalyst for confidence. And I'd like for you to share more about that trust.
The trust that I put into others or the trust that I have received along the way.
The trust that you received along the way, and maybe I guess the second part to that is then knowing that that became the catalyst for your confidence, how you've utilized it to help others.
Yeah, for sure. I got really fortunate early in a career that was spanned a decade, where the messaging to me was, you have the keys. I completely trust you. I know that you're going to stumble, mess things up, and that's okay. Like, that's how you're going to learn. And I just needed that type of mentorship, management. It just suits my personality to know that somebody gives me the authority to really tune into my intuition, to grow through experience. And during that decade with the company, I had such monumental growth that by the end, I decided and I had enough confidence to start my own business, which I've had for the past decade plus. Um, and, like you, I feel like after that, especially being a solopreneur, owning my own company, I didn't have as many opportunities. So then it kind of just turned into, well, then I get to give that to other people. A recent example, though, was through a year-long training that I have been a part of. And again, that was a catalyst for growth for me because it was a person that the understanding was, she saw me and my potential, and she kindly was pushing me towards growth and helping me like test my threshold and boundaries, and really held me in a safe space. Like, you can do this. And it was a great mirror to have back of like, oh, this is the work that I do for other people. And it feels so good to receive it in return. And then the last thing that comes up for me right now is being in this role and the shoes that I get to wear. I get to see regularly what that looks like having somebody trust you in action, like seeing what transpires for my clients, these business owners, solopreneurs, when you just have one person by your side saying, you're doing great. I believe in you. This may be hard now. You have the ability to, you are worth this. And it's just those affirmations from somebody that they trust to go, okay, I'm going to dig in. We're going to do this.
I would have done anything to have that kind of mentorship consistently throughout my life. I remember at one point, someone who I do consider still a mentor had, as a point of confidence, said, I'm glad that you recognize the value in seeking out mentorship and being receptive to that. Not everyone is. Uh, I truly believe that it would make a life changes, a series of um, positive changes if everyone could have some level of support like that.
Yes,
Right?
totally agree. I feel like everyone deserves and should have a mentor in their lives for whatever that area of your life is that you feel like I'm not quite there yet. I don't have the confidence or I don't have all the answers, the wisdom, experience, just to have somebody by your side. And I know you've had this experience too. It's not that I bear so much wisdom, although I feel like I have had a lot over the 20 years plus years of my career, but it's really just sitting by somebody's side to ensure them that they actually do have the answers. That through conscious conversation, through times of pause, investigation, curiosity, that they have the information inside and you're just being there with them for it.
You know, early on, you and I had this um, little point in the conversation where we talked about someone having confidence in you, and then you using that as a model to have confidence in others.
Yes.
One of the challenges that I continue having, even though I consider myself very spiritual, is learning to trust what is intuition, my intuition. And I feel like you've brought that up in different ways as well.
Yeah.
But that being that inner guide, that inner mentor, that when and if should you, and I have struggled at times not having the level of mentorship I need in different areas of life, that learning to tune in to your own inner wisdom.
Yes.
Speak to that as
Oh
well.
gosh, I would love to. I feel like this is a common struggle for most people, discerning where the voice is coming from, where the information is coming from, because there's a lot of positive with it, but a lot of confusion with all the external noise coming our way. The influence that we have of friends, family, colleagues, bosses, just the world at large. And being able to go back to home base to understand what is mine and what is my path. So a few things that come up for me. One that we already spoke about, you know, correlating this decision making, re-tapping in and understanding what your intuition is by having it match up again your why, your purpose as a vetting place. Similar to the why purpose for me are your core values. Like, what is your makeup? What is most important to you? What do you prioritize? How do you make decisions? And using those kind of key tangible pieces to bounce intuition ideas off of and seeing how it feels. And then related to feeling, because in my experience, I can't get to that place of feeling unless I have times of stillness. I can't be on the go, busy, kind of always interacting and be able to listen to this more quiet inner voice. So, whatever that means for you, I know a lot of your listeners probably are looped into meditation practice, yoga. For me, it's time in nature, just kind of getting away, going for a long walk or hike, and just being with that question to see what most genuinely comes up for me. I also use journaling practice to kind of scope through those things. And then what's most present for me is I had lunch with a friend and we were just being able to process out loud and have it come up as like, oh, that's a true yes, or that didn't feel right. That's a no, that wasn't mine. So for all of these, I feel like the answer is tapping into intuition in terms of like your path, your answers when it comes to you versus even a trusted mentor is having time to slow down and giving yourself permission to be with that.
It's interesting you should bring up the fact that even if a mentor guides you in a certain way, ultimately we have the modalities like meditation or journaling to learn to trust that inner voice. I was recently listening to someone who she's gone on to write many books. She was on TV, But
Yeah.
at one point, her then mentor, before she really was able to pivot, um, she brought up the idea, like, I think I need to write a book. This
Mm.
individual said, no, not for you. That's not your path.
Hmm.
She went home and
Yeah.
said she sat with it. And then she's like, no, that's not, it's not, it doesn't settle well with me. She went on to write several best-selling books.
Yeah.
So, you know, even the well-meaning mentor with the best of tools and intentions may not know you as effectively on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And, my favorite style of coaching and mentorship is I will not give you the answer. And I'm really clear about that with clients. Like, this is not you come to me and I just rattle off answers based on my experience or what I know about you. It's just, I'm here as I'm going to capture everything in this big container, know what your purpose, your why is, know what your core values are, know what's most important to you, like your definition of a beautiful life, and then reflect back questions. Why is that important to you? What would you write about? Why is now feel like the right timing? Just to give it back so you can get in deeper and deeper. It's like, oh, that's a great, I don't know the answer to that. It's just sitting with those questions versus going to someone else external to find those answers for you.
I often use the metaphor of the approach, again, very similar to what you were describing, like active listening, like
Yeah.
the term Sherpa. They guide you up the
Mhm.
hill, but they don't necessarily tell you exactly how to navigate, but
Yeah.
on a more intuitive level to guide you.
I love that.
Yeah. Um, so one thing you mentioned again, it goes back to active listening, but listening is something that sounds like it's very inherently part of who you are. And I believe that that's something that often leadership in the like the bro culture and the very, I don't know, corporate world that I came from was often missing. This gentle energy where active listening and engagement is something that's brushed aside like, well, we don't have time for that.
Hmm.
I'd like for you to share some of that wisdom with maybe the new generation who can be inspired by knowing that that way maybe it worked for a certain generation, but may not work for ours.
Yeah. This, when I work with companies, we work on conscious leadership. And when it comes to listening, you said it before, it's generous listening, active listening. I do a presentation called The Art of Listening, which is we all have agendas that we enter conversations with, whether we're conscious to them or not, things that we want to get done, things that we want to say, outcomes that we desire. And it's not just tossing those out, but it's just quieting that a little bit, knowing that when you enter conversation, it's about two or more people. And to be really cognizant of that you don't have all of the information about how the person is feeling, their mindset, the questions that they have, things that they don't know. So for me, when I enter conversation, it's a lot about information gathering, everything from body language of the person who's across from me or the people that are in the group. And knowing that my job, if I'm facilitating a conversation as a leader, is to ensure that I have all the information necessary for us all to feel successful in this conversation. And it's a lot of open ended questions. Tell me more. How does this feel? What information is missing? Just, whatever kind of conversation that you're in, to have the other person, number one, not feel armored up, that they can expose themselves and feel really comfortable without judgment to fully participate in this conversation.
So, in your time of developing your skills as a leader and integrating listening skills,
Yes.
can you share with me something that's a little more of a geeky question here now?
Yeah.
Academically or some place in your training or education, did you find that you received that skill set or training, or is it something that innately was in you, or did you have to learn as you go?
Yeah, all of it, right? I feel like a lot of it was innate, just based on what I desired when I was growing up, which was, can somebody ask me some questions? My innate response is, if you ask a question, if I don't feel like you're listening, I'm going to give you a very surface level answer. But if I know that you're fully there and you're interested, then I'll give you more. And I was always looking for somebody who I knew was there and available and wanted to help me, because I have a lot kind of contained up here. And I need questions, whether they be self-introduced or from somebody else, to kind of probe that out of me. And because I wanted that so badly, it was easy for that then for me to give it to other people because it's what I craved. So I offered it really freely. So this has been a part of my process since I was really young. And then in terms of honing this skill, I just had a lot of practice because I managed large teams and I got to see response. And I knew really early on that being in conversation and for somebody to understand that you are there, you care, and you're truly listening to want to understand and not prove something or settle on your resolution or your agenda, but you're just really present and open, it makes a difference. And I got to physically see that and then get verbal feedback from other people of like, that was a really tough conversation, but you made it easy. Or I never shared that with somebody before. And then being able to see people that I mentored then carry that same skill set with other people that they were managing. It just kind of reinforced the value of it. And then I started presenting this material to companies because I thought it came pretty natural for people. Whereas in companies that I work with, it's one of the major sources of conflict is not being able to communicate well to each other. It feels like it should be something that's easy. I speak, you listen, we have a problem, we resolve it. But there's so much nuance to it because we're really complicated human beings. So being able to create training material and then present it to teams has really helped reinforce it too.
As I've shared multiple times now throughout my life, I've different places, especially when it came to academics and then transitioning and using those skills in my job. My husband and I both believe that it would have been so much easier or would have been so beneficial if there was a mentor along the way, because most of it was figuring out as you go or learning the hard way. Now, having said that, I'm curious, when you are in a opportunity, I will call it an opportunity, where you can share these skills, if you will, through
Yeah.
training. Um, do you, and this sort of just kind of hitting me in my guts, I'm just going to ask this. Do you find that how the culture is set up affects how they receive this information? Meaning,
Of course.
like technology, which is where I came from, very different approach. It's very punitive, very authoritative, very there's a word for that's not coming to me, but it's male, female, and authority of the male figure. But then in the wellness industry, I imagine, hope it's different.
Mhm. Yeah, I chose, probably about 5 to 7 years ago to only align myself with clients who were interested, deeply interested in the safety, the growth, the thriving of their teams. So I don't currently interact with cultures where this is not something that feels like we need this. We can do better. If there's resistance from the top, it doesn't feel like an organization that I naturally want to align myself with because I know that it has to be experienced and brought to life on every single level for this to work. It can't be, these really open-minded, open-hearted, kind of mid-level or newer employees bumping up against, a corporate team that's just like, you guys learn that, but we're going to keep responding in the same way. It has to be a culture where it's just really fluid, and we're learning together how to better communicate and support one another. So I do a pretty large vetting process with my clients to understand like how this is going to be received and used and incorporated on all levels.
Um, that really ties in with my next question because you mentioned being very intentional with the cultures you align with.
Yeah.
And from what I've read about you, I've known about you, is you're renowned for creating workshops, retreats, and events that inspire conscious leadership and strong connections. Um, what role do you think um, let me phrase this. What role do you think human connections play in great leadership? Meaning, consciously connecting with one another and fostering authentic relationships.
Um, for me, this is it. I mean, this is why we are here as humans, whether you layer on, working for a large company or being a part of, a community, whatever community, social community, religious community that is, like, I feel like we are here for human connection. And just because you kind of put a layer on it of like, we're all going to be, working 9 to 5 in this office, you can't subtract that. I mean, if we're all really lucky, we live a long life into, our late 90s, but we get this one chance. And I personally, as a leader, don't want to create this concrete separation between who I am as a human in all other areas of my life and then working for this company. I feel like there's a way to fuse those both together so that the company thrives, its team thrives, its, its clients, its audience thrives as well, because everybody's working from like wholehearted, fully, kind of circular purpose. Um, so, that's the other client that I'm looking for. It's just like, how does all of this live underneath one roof? How can I see this person as a full person versus just siloed into the type of work that they're doing for me? I feel like I was able to thrive as a leader when I did work for a company because I wanted to care for that person in front of me. I wanted to make sure that as a human being, that they felt seen and supported, and I was curious about who they were on all sides. And I got to see the result of that type of authentic connection with somebody that then translated to how can I help them grow in their workplace, whether they work here for a year or for 10 years. Like, I want them to feel like they could do their best work here. And in my experience, that's possible. It doesn't affect the bottom line. It doesn't bleed too much of who we are as human beings in our personal life into the workspace. Like, if it's just accepted and permitted that we all take care of each other here, that the business can really grow.
And one of my favorite topics is authenticity. And often
Mhm.
there's this friction because some people are like, well, what the persona that you are personally versus the one that you present on work, they need to be separate. And I think it's because I had that self awareness within me from a very young age that I wanted to arrive and be as transparent and authentic as possible that I, for better or worse, stepped away from corporate because I couldn't live that embodiment, so to speak. But I think this kind of transition or pivot may not always be needed. Hopefully, leaders can allow that embodiment within different cultures. But what it requires, I think, is self awareness. And my next question is in terms of conscious leadership, which I think is deeply tied to self awareness, how can leaders develop greater self awareness or be mentored to develop better self awareness, to show up more authentically for their team and allow others to feel more embodied in their role?
Mhm.
It's a powerful question.
Yeah, it's a powerful question, and it's not that complicated, yet it takes work, right? And I think I could link in this podcast some worksheets that would be really helpful for the audience of self-awareness. To me means understanding what my makeup is. And for me, some of the things we've already defined, what are my core values? So that I could represent those and bring them to life, both in my personal life and at work. For me, my core values are connection, curiosity, and creativity. And you'll see those on my website. Like, what does it mean for me to be curious as a coach and a leader? What does it mean to be creative in this space? What does it mean for connection? So that I can employ those as a leader in my workspace. Because these are the natural qualities that bubble up that I don't have to have a lot of forced energy out. It's just who I am. So I feel that like self-awareness, a big piece of it is your core values. The other one is your purpose, your why. So that in the workspace, you could really align your decision making, how you operate, how you interact from that lens of your purpose and your why. And I think the last piece for me that comes up for now when it comes to self-awareness as a leader is understanding, like, where do I put on blinders? Where do I still have work to do when it comes to me showing up as my best, my truest leader? One of the things that I did early in my career was kind of create my leadership legacy. It's like what is possible? What is possible if I, step into my greatest light? And what's going to keep me from doing that? And I know the things that hold me back, the things that pop up. We all have things that pop up. That's why we have meditation practice. That's why we have really good friends and colleagues in our life to hold us accountable for that growth in spite of those things that could hold us back. So I think it's about, removing the blinders from those areas that will come up as triggers for us. It'll come up as the work that we need to do in putting really good practices in place so that when they do come up, that we can course correct as quickly as possible.
Um, you mentioned legacy. I think you just touched upon it, but what's the legacy you hope to leave as a trusted leader?
I can actually start crying. um, it would be some interpretation of my why. Like, you know, and for me, leadership is not just this lane of in the business realm. Like leadership to me, because I have clients who don't, operate businesses. They just want to be leaders in their family, leaders in their community. So that definition for me kind of spawns like all avenues of my life. And I just want, like, when people think of me, I want them to think like when I'm with her, like she's there, and I just feel a little safer, more seen, that the work that I want to do, it's possible just by my presence and my energy and my contribution to conversation. And that goes for the clients that I work with, my two young children, my partner, my friends. Like, I just want to, like, if I could get paid to do anything in the world, it would be, can I support you? Like, I just want to be a cheerleader by your side. Like, I feel like if somebody has an idea, somebody has something really big in their bodies that they want to bring to life, I want to be there with them for it because it's not always easy. But if you have a mentor, if you have a friend by your side to say, I got you, you're going to do this.
We're gonna make me cry because that was so beautifully articulated.
Thanks, friend.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Cherie, you this conversation has been so inspiring and filled with practical advice for listeners who want to elevate their leadership and mindset. What's one piece of advice you'd encourage them to take away from today's discussion?
Mm, okay. What comes to mind for me is an audience, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm just gonna look right at you, is just, this last piece of our conversation. It's like, who do you want to be as a leader? What impact do you want to make? And I think just kind of seeing that in writing, going through the process is a huge step just to identify and claim what's possible for you based on who you know that you are and the type of impact that you want to make in the world. And something just a little bit more, even more tangible than that would be the worksheets that we'll link to this podcast to dive in. It's going to be your why, your purpose, and your core values as a person and as a leader, and kind of looking at all of those pieces over this next month and then creating a course from there.
I love it. And I know I'll look at those materials as well.
Mm.
They'll be in the show notes. Well, Cherie, I hope in the future you come back because I just love this conversation. I think we can go deep in different areas. And you're going to set 2025 on fire for so many of my audience members.
Thanks, friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate you.